The Legend of Zelda is one of Nintendo's flagship series, and probably my favorite adventure series. It's been around for almost 40 years, since the original Legend of Zelda on the NES, and this newest game does something that no Zelda game, on Nintendo console anyway, CDI doesn't count, has done before. Have Zelda, not Link, as the playable protagonist. Echoes of Wisdom flips the normal Legend of Zelda script on its head, and sees Link kidnapped and Zelda embarking on a quest to defeat the evil threatening Hyrule and rescue the hero. The general premise is that dark rifts are opening up across Hyrule, pulling people in and disrupting villages and roadways. The other, more sinister aspect to these rifts is that in some instances, dark clones of the people swallowed emerge and replace them. This eventually gets Zelda mistakenly identified as the cause of the rifts, and thus arrested and locked in the castle's dungeons. It's only through the help of a wisp-like entity named Tri, who teaches her to use their magic to create echoes, magic duplicates of items and monsters, that she is able to escape the dungeon and begin to unravel the mystery and identity of the real culprit. As she travels across Hyrule, she learns to create echoes of new monsters to fight for her, help the various peoples of the land, and learn the truth of the rifts. Visually, the game follows the recent Link's Awakening's remake style, and that's a very good thing in my book. The game's colors pop, the character models are smooth and made with a beautiful simplicity, and it really captures the overall vibe of early 90s Zelda, while offering a very modern presentation and gameplay feel. Performance does tend to suffer a little bit as far as frame rate goes on the original Switch, but playing on my Switch 2, it was a smooth 60 FPS, as opposed to the wild wavering between 30 and 60 on the original Switch. It would be nice if there were a patch that capped it at 30 FPS on the original Switch, and a Switch 2 specific patch that kept it uncapped so that players on the OG Switch could have a smooth experience, even if at a slightly lower frame rate, while Switch 2 still benefits from the stronger hardware. Even on the original Switch, though, with its inconsistent frame rate, the game's excellence still definitely outweighs the performance shortcomings. Breath of the Wild, as I'm sure all Zelda fans have experienced for themselves, marked a dramatic departure from the traditional Zelda formula, trading the typical dungeons for open-world exploration. Echoes of Wisdom returned to the dungeon format, but it's also a pretty big departure from the typical Zelda experience due to Zelda's role as the main character. Unlike Link, Zelda does not engage in combat directly. She can sort of channel Link's power through his dropped sword for a short period of time to fight directly like he does, but 9 times out of 10, she fights through creating echoes of monsters that fight for her. This forces the player to take a more strategic approach to fights, as the echoes can be stunned during an attack preparation easily, so picking the right echo for the right opponent is key, and that can take a little bit of experimentation. Traversing the environment's obstacles also takes some trial and error with echoes. My go-to methods for traversing gaps or reaching higher elevations were building a bridge of beds and stacking blocks of water to swim up, respectively. This seems like the kind of game, though, where there is no correct answer most of the time, and I imagine that players have devised a plethora of creative solutions to these dungeon obstacles. Echoes of Wisdom is definitely a different take on the core Legend of Zelda experience, but blending a return to traditional dungeons with a radical change in gameplay style managed to give the game a familiar feel while also feeling novel and fresh at the same time. Something that's not always easy to do with a series as old and revered as The Legend of Zelda is. Breath of the Wild definitely managed to feel novel and fresh, but not much about it felt particularly familiar. That's not a bad thing, but I do think that Echoes of Wisdom is a more interesting way to refresh the series by striking that balance between newness and nostalgic familiarity. I'd love to see a Switch 2 edition that adds in and expands the dungeon building from Link's Awakening's remake. It really should have been called Link's Reawakening in my opinion. But just for the performance boost alone that the Switch 2's more robust hardware gives, it is a stark improvement. Even if you only have the original Switch though, it is absolutely worth playing. It's a unique and memorable Zelda experience that definitely deserves more attention than it seems to me that it's got. My rating for The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom on Switch is an A.